Welcome to the Joy Work Show, the podcast that goes beyond the surface of business, right to the heart, to explore the real joy and the stories behind success. Not just the moments of celebration, but the challenges that pave the way for them. Hiya, I'm Diane, and here we know that joy isn't just about the good times. Often the greatest joy comes right after the greatest challenge. Today is one of our great guest episodes, and I'm joined by the wonderful Nicole Gomez, a nervous system expert and business mentor who has walked the path from the corporate world into entrepreneurship, carrying with her not just experience, but deep wisdom. In our conversation, we're looking into the fascinating and often overlooked role of nervous system regulation. Nicole shares how understanding our body's responses can transform how we handle anxiety, overwhelm, and even how we lead in business. We explore the profound connection between physical and emotional well-being, what it means to take a truly holistic approach, and practical steps you can use right away to manage triggers and create safety in your body. And it's not all just deep breathing and ice baths. This episode is as much about healing as it is about growth. And I cannot wait for you to hear Nicole's insights. So as you know, it's always best to hear directly from the guests themselves. So let's go. Hi, Nicole, and welcome to the Joy Work Show. I am so delighted you're with me here today, and I'm excited because I get to find out all about you the exact same time as the audience listening. So let us know who you are, what you do, and how you got here.
First of all, thank you so much for having me, Diane. I'm so happy to be here and to have this conversation.
You're
with
so
you.
welcome. You're so welcome.
And who am I? So my name is Nicole. I am a nervous system expert and business mentor for entrepreneurs. So essentially, I help entrepreneurs rewire their brain, rewire their nervous system and their relationship with money so that they can step into their next level of income and abundance and leadership with so much ease and freedom. And those words, ease and freedom, are really big words in my work, in my life. And this work goes to a depth that most of the industry really hasn't seen yet. And that's why I'm so happy to have this conversation, because it's so much more of these conversations need to be had. So I'm also the founder of the Trauma Informed Nervous System Coaching Academy, where I train coaches really to the highest standards so that they're able to create those deep lasting transformations for clients at the root system level. Go away from the surface level and at a really deep deep level. So that's me in a nutshell.
Wonderful. It's so succinct. You are very good at getting your message across of who you are and what you do. I absolutely love that. What I want to ask you is, I'm going to go right in with a big question. I think we hear nervous system. Well, I hear it quite a lot. I've looked into it myself. I've got a little bit of knowledge about it. I'll talk about my own little journey with it in a little while. But for those that are out there thinking, I hear about it, I think it, I hear those things that sound familiar to me, like overwhelm and, when you are not looking after your nervous system and the impact that they can have. But for those that really don't know what it means, what does your nervous system mean and what does it mean to really look after it?
I'm so glad you asked, because I'm on this mission to redefine what it means, because as you said, it's become a very big buzzword, and there is a lot of misconception around what true nervous system regulation is. A lot of what we hear is what you can call resourcing, what you can call, like, I don't know, people go and walk in nature or do some breath work or meditation or a cold plunge, or, this is where these practices, yes, are beautiful, and I'm not denying that, and they're important as well. And what they do is they help you tap into the rest and restore response of the parasympathetic nervous system. So essentially, it helps to create that your body coming out of any kind of response, right, stress response, and into a place of really rest. I mean, that's what it's called, rest and restore, right? So and we all need to start there. And that's what I call kind of the first level of healing, if you like. And the thing is that what I'm seeing out there is people are staying stuck in this place of Yes, at best, for the next hour, maybe for the rest of the day, you feel more regulated. It's from that place of regulation where you have more creativity, in your business, in your life. You're able to make those moves, with, reaching out to people, from creating those offers from a place of really abundance. And then at best, that lasts maybe an hour or a day. And then you have to go right back into trying to manage it. And this is what I see out there is, there's a lot of kind of managing and coping with the quote unquote symptoms. But what's happening is that, yes, an hour later or a day later, I see so many I work primarily with entrepreneurs, but people that then are circling around the same patterns again and again and just trying to manage them. And the patterns are, yes, overwhelm, anxiety, is fear of failure, fear of success. There's pleasing, a lot of fear of rejection and judgments that are enmeshed and shuffled into their leadership in their business. They're still circling around these patterns. So true deep nervous system regulation isn't managing the symptoms. And this is where I come in and I redefine what true nervous system work is. And this is the new era really for nervous system work, where we are not just managing. What we're doing is we are reprogramming the brain and the nervous system to accurately detect threat or danger. I'm going to explain what that means, because when you're back in those patterns, when you're back in overwhelm or anxiety or in procrastination, what is happening is that your brain and your nervous system perceiving like, okay, there's a threat here. That's why we go into a stress response. We need to respond. Now, while rationally we know there's no real threat, right? We know that we are not going to physically die. There's no physical, threat to our safety. The brain and the nervous system believe otherwise. So true deep nervous system regulation is resolution, because once our brain is perceiving a threat where there is none, it means that there's some open loop imprint within the brain and the nervous system. And so we need to resolve and complete those loops, because it's kind of just constantly running on that open loop. Like there's threat here, there's threat here. So resolution is reprogramming the brain to no longer perceive that the danger is there. And that is the core of the work that is so needed in the business world, in our society, in the world. This is what true nervous system regulation is. And I want to add one small thing to that is why is your brain and your nervous system perceiving these threats? And it comes back to those early life, early in life. We were born, our brain, our nervous system, subconscious. Our subconscious is what is where we hold all those beliefs about who we are, the world around us. All of that, the subconscious, the nervous system, and the brain were imprinted primarily in those first 7 to 8 years of life and beyond. And so then we carry, because the nervous system, the brain doesn't know time, we carry that nervous system, the subconscious, into adulthood. And we carry those threats that were very real threats when we were younger, very real threats to our system, whether we acknowledge them or not, because a lot of it, when it's developmental trauma, and a lot of it where it's so conditioned in our society, we don't realize our actual threats, and we carry that into adulthood. And this is where the brain and nervous system is still perceiving like, I'm going to be rejected now. I still can't express really who I am without something happening, without something bad happening, without something dangerous happening. So we carry that into adulthood. So I know I've spoken a lot. I don't know if some of that resonates with you, Diane.
No, it absolutely resonates with me. And the reason I find it so interesting, and the reason I think, and when I've spoken to it with clients, with friends, with people, peers, and it's so interesting because I came from, even just in like the short past 5 years. So I had a 20 plus year career in the direct sales industry in the UK, and it was fast and high powered and money, and exciting and long hours and all of those things. And that's the only way I knew how to work. So for 20 years, I was taught that you had to be basically in fight or flight mode consistently. That's just how I worked. So when I wanted to change, and there was lots of times throughout my career that I was like, I can't continue to do this. You burn out quickly, but then you think about the kind of life and the money you're earning and everything else. So you bring yourself back round. And there's so many times that I could see that throughout my career. So when it came to the point that I knew I wanted to leave, I had my girls, and then that was my opportunity, the window open to do something else. And you come into, whether it's the online space or not, but you come into entrepreneurial space, you start your own business, and you have to reteach yourself that that's not how you have to work. And actually, to be better, to be more productive, to have more success, to serve everyone around you in the best way that you possibly can, you have to look after that. And like, as I say, I'm learning. I'm not, I'm not a finished article. I'm not a nervous system expert, but it's so interesting that, and there's so many people that come from that. They come from the corporate, the private sector, or even coming from public sector, being doctors and things like that, come into the entrepreneurial space and nothing changes because nothing changes. And it's so important to learn that. And I wondered if that is that what you find. Obviously you spoke a lot about from a young age and learning that, but also that's the way I saw my dad work. So I only understood success
Right.
had to be got that way.
Yes. Yes. And we learn it in whole different ways, and what drives the decisions we make, in our lives, and you moving into that job, just like, and I can speak to also my own background. I was in a very, I was in the investment banking industry, so very similar to you. Uh, our our sense of, let me see how I phrase this. Well, going back to what I said before, all of the ways that we were, all of the ways that our nervous system, our brain, our subconscious was imprinted in childhood, as you said, where, it's with all those experiences, so our subconscious carries all of those experiences, and including, yes, you saw your father, including the beliefs that we have about us, about the world around us, this, many of which are, or most of which are tied to our sense of self-worth or sense of value, is I will feel worthy, or I will feel of some value if I go and I make this amount of money, or if I go and I'm in what society perceives as a successful career, and this comes from a place of our body wanting to find that sense of safety, because that's what really safety, worth, our value, trust, they're all really the same. They all mean the same thing, and they're all the same thing, and we're all kind of, as a society, because of this dysregulation from early in life. Again, a lot of it is unacknowledged. A lot of people will tell me, I had a great childhood, and yes, we're not taking away from that, but that doesn't, but also your system was imprinted in certain ways that you're unaware, because it's just simply how the brain and the body works, how the child's brain develops, that you take on all of these things. So we end up chasing this sense of safety, this sense of worth, like this is what's going to make me valuable, and then we move into these careers that were maybe, I'm gonna just I can only speak for myself here, that was not really aligned with me, and not, really not who I was. And yes, I was great at it, but it wasn't. Ultimately, when I think back, and I don't have any regrets. Although there is a lot of grief. I feel like grief and regret are two different things, but
Yeah.
it wasn't aligned to me. And then when we start to do this work, and again, not just a cold plunge, not just a bit of breath work and meditation, all of those things have a certain place, but when we actually do this deep work at a root system level, we actually start to make decisions from a place that truly is aligned with what we value, with what we truly value, rather than it becoming about that safety that we never had, or that sense of self, sense of worth that we never had.
Uh-huh.
So yeah, I wanted to speak to that a little bit. It ends up becoming about that kind of chase for the thing that will never really give us the thing that would, what we've always needed.
Absolutely. Absolutely. And do you find, so I have chronic illnesses, and I have found that in the last, I would say probably in the last year, I've really started to focus on my nervous systems, recognizing triggers, recognizing when I'm pushing too hard, recognizing ways I can make my day as productive as I want it to be, even my old self wants it to be. Um, and do you see that the nervous system, because we've spoke about like our nervous system in terms of how we feel, but do you see it physically? Do you see people suffering physically, and then once they've done the work or working through the work, they can actually have a lift physically from how they are feeling?
Absolutely. And I'm going to speak from a personal level, and then I'll speak to examples from clients I've worked with. But absolutely, and I'm going to give an example of why of why this is happening. So when, and going back to what I was saying before, your brain and your nervous system are perceiving a threat. So it will go into a stress response, right? And we've heard of the fight or flight. There's also the freeze, fawn, all of this. We'll go into a survival pattern, essentially. Like, okay, this is what I need to survive. I need to run away. I need to, anxiety, overwhelm, procrastinate. That's the freeze response. We go into the stress response. What the body is doing in those stress responses is that all the resources from all of your organs, so from your gut, your immune system, all the resources from all of your organs are being mobilized to help you survive in that moment, to run away from the danger, to fight the danger, whatever it is. All of those resources are being utilized. And so essentially to go into your muscles so that you can run away from your life, you can run away or fight for your life. And what is happening here, and I'm going to speak specifically to, I had a lot of gut issues, and I see it, and this is why I see it it's so rampant in our society. Like the word IBS is being thrown around. Doctors have no idea. They go, you look fine, you seem fine, you have these symptoms, it's IBS. We just put a label on it, and then people just learn to manage it. And what's happening here is your digestive system is not able to function as it's meant to function, because all those resources, because again, you are in a stress response chronically all the time. You're not just suddenly stressed one moment and then you come back to no, because what's happening here with dysregulation is we're just moving from one stress response to the next. The moment where you may feel anxiety and you're like, okay, this is definitely a stress response. And then what's happening is you're likely pinging into a freeze. You're pinging into, okay, no, I'm not stressed right now, but why am I feeling some gut pain, or why am I feeling some shoulder, why am I feeling all this tension in my body? It's because we're actually just pinging from, and as a society, because there's so much dysregulation, pinging from an activated state, which is like the fight or flight or anxiety, overwhelm that you are very aware of because it's very highly charged, into a freeze, right? And into a freeze, rather than what a healthy nervous system does, and what I help clients rewire in my work within a matter of months, is you ping into a stress response, because we do want to be able to go into a stress. We want because the nervous system is there for a reason. It's to help us survive. So if a tiger is chasing you, you want to be running away from your life, right? You don't want to be in this calm state all the time. It's not a healthy nervous system is not when you're calm all the time. It's when you're able to ping into, there's an actual danger, not a perceived danger that's not actually there, an actual danger, where you go into that stress response, and then you can complete that loop. And I was talking about the loops, right? So you begin that stress response, and then that loop completes when you're actually safe, physically safe, where that tiger is gone. I'm going to give this example of the tiger. The tiger is gone, and you've completed that stress response, and you've come back to safe. And you've come back to what we call in polyvagal theory, the ventral vagals. This is the social engagement. This is where you are regulated, where you can engage socially from a place of connection, from a place of safety. And that is what a healthy nervous system looks like. But what's happening is that people are pinging from stress response to stress response, and unconsciously, and it's not the society's fault, because again, it goes back to, there's been so much miseducation out there and misinformation out. But because you are pinging from stress response to stress response, you're in a stress response chronically all the time. And I really want that to land, especially for the listeners, because you are in that stress response chronically all the time. So your digestive system is not able to function as it's meant to, because all of those resources are not there. They're in your muscles so that you can survive. So you're basically in survival. So all of your organs are compromised, and I'm going to go back to the digestive system, and this is where I see IBS, and I see all these, and I had, my goodness, years of IBS. I had acid reflux coming, it would, coming up through my esophagus. I I did numerous tests. I did all of your food sensitivity pricks and all of that. And I eliminated foods. And I see this all the time, is that we're trying to resolve a nervous system issue with a food issue. And yes, food and nutrition is important and it has a place, but we need to address this first before we add on that layer of nutrition and all of that. And so yes, it shows up physically. It shows up very much physically. I had an eating disorder as well. I actually had a neurological disorder, a chronic neurological disorder as well. Again, I had no idea that I was young at the time. I had no support around me to be able to notice that. So yes, it shows up physically all the time. It's just one of the ways, and other ways are in your business, in the way you're burning out. Like, it's so interesting that society likes to separate the physical and the emotional and the mental, but they're one and the same.
Absolutely.
It's crazy to me that society doesn't realize that, because when you're feeling nervous, where do you feel? You feel it in your body, right? Your emotion is tied to a sensation in your body. When you're sad, you cry, you have physical tears. The physical, the emotional, they are one and the same. We can't separate them. So yes, absolutely. Yes, and it shows up on a number of physical ailments and
Well,
illnesses.
this is why I find it so fascinating, and why I love what you said there at the end about the society or medical professions. When you have chronic illnesses, they want to separate all of those three things, and it's impossible. Because when you have a chronic illness, you go in a loop anyway, because you go through your symptoms, then you'll get down about it, then your nervous system will be whacked out about it, and then you'll get a bit better, and then you'll start again. And it's this vicious circle of how you're feeling, how your body feels, how you feel in yourself, how your mental health feels. And I think the nervous system is so, so important, because people know who listen to this podcast, and as we briefly spoke before, I've had health issues this year, so I've had to really, really address all areas of my life, because I'm not going to lead a smaller life because of some physical ailments and some illnesses. Yes, there will be limitations at times, there will be things, but my life's not getting smaller. So what can I do as somebody to make it as best as possible? So I'm under consultants at the moment for the physical, medical, the things that aren't going to get better through anything else. I need their help. But I also then need to do things for myself, and I am doing things through food, and I'm on quite a strict elimination thing at the moment, and it is helping. But I know I can't do that and continue to live my life the way that I was or could, because you're just constantly fighting against. If you try and bring everything in together, and it is difficult and it does sometimes feel like hard work, but when you try and bring everything in together and look after, your nervous system, the food you're eating, your health, drink water, get enough sleep, all those little things that can have a huge impact. But I know that I need to do them all together, because one of those things, and helping my nervous system, is not going to cure me, but it sure as goodness is going to really help. Like, really help. Like, the more space I create, the more I look after my calendar, the more that I'm purposeful about what I'm doing, the better it is. The more I sleep, the better it is. The more that I spend time, if I'm feeling panicky, breathing, the better it is. So I love that you said it's those three things, because this is what I see, and this is what I see with people who are chronic illnesses or running businesses or living life, that they think doing the one thing is going to be that magic cure for what it is. And so often you have to kind of look at the bigger picture.
Yeah, and I wanted to speak to this because it's interesting, because I actually just recorded a case study with one of my clients yesterday, and this came up, where when you were talking about all of the things that you're working on, right? And what I always say is that when your system is in a place of what we call homeostasis, which means equilibrium, right? Which means this healthy, flexible nervous system that I spoke about before, it no longer becomes a chore to then do the things that will nurture you and essentially look after you. Does no longer becomes like, I should do this. And this is what's happening with my client, is that she has never looked after herself better. And it hasn't come from like, I need to do this. And, oh, this feels a little bit hard. When you're in that place of homeostasis, you are in this place of really deep connection with yourself, and you connection with what you actually need. And when you get those signals, right, those signals from your body, like, I need this, I'm going to go and do this. And she has never looked after herself physically. And of course, we're not separating, as we were saying earlier. It's not separating it, but she's saying, I'm doing 2 PT sessions a week, and it feels enjoyable. And it's been sustainable now over the last few months. And it hasn't been like, I need to. It hasn't been from a place of like, and she said this and I can't wait to share this on my content. She said it doesn't come from a place of lack anymore. It comes from a place that's bountiful, and she used that word, or I use the word abundant, whatever it is. When it doesn't come from that place of lack, like I need to do this so that I'm not this, or I need to do this so whatever it is, then it's sustainable. And that's what my work is all about. It's sustainability. And you don't need to push yourself anymore. You don't need to, I don't feel like doing this, but I know I'm going to feel good after. It no longer becomes that. And that's what freedom, and I talk about total freedom, and that's what freedom is. That's what total freedom is. It's no longer being in this place of pushing and forcing. And that only comes from a place of survival, of a place of unmet needs, because that's what unsafety is. It's unmet needs. But once those needs are met through the work, through the reprogramming, as I mentioned earlier, then it becomes, I'm going to do this for myself. And we start to make decisions that are aligned, that are not shuffled in with a lot of indecision and a lot of uncertainty. Because I see that a lot with business owners. There's a lot of indecision, inaction, because of course we don't truly know what we want, because what we're moving from, again, a place of like, is what I want this because it's going to help me feel more safe, it's going to help me feel more worthy. So I wanted to add that, being from a place of homeostasis, it's going to move organically. You're going to make those decisions to better yourself, your life, your relationships in a way that...
Never heard that word before, but it means, and explained that way, but it makes complete sense to me. So I was even having a conversation with my mum last week about everything that I'm having to do at the moment, and she was asking me how I was finding it, and I was saying, there is challenges, and one of the biggest challenges is the way I'm having to eat at the moment. And then at the weekend, everyone's having treats or a glass of wine or doing all these things, and I'm like, well, I'm not doing that. But it's like exactly what you said about not coming from that place of lack, because I'm like, but I get to look after myself. I get to now make a meal that is going to look after me, rather than looking and thinking, oh, why can't I have the pancakes or the ice cream that they're having, but thinking, but that's not right for me just now. What's right for me just now is for me to feed my body with what it needs to make it better, to be able to sit at this table with my family, with my girls' smiling faces while they eat their ice cream, and I eat still beautiful foods, but it's not that treat, that Saturday night treat thing. But that's a program, and that's not, and I will have treats again in my life. It's just where it is at this precise moment in time. But I can sit there and feel well, and that is the difference. So rather than me sitting thinking, oh, it's not fair, they're having that, this is rubbish, I've got things wrong with me, blah, 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 I can just think, but look what I can do when I think I'm worthy enough to look after myself enough. And as a mum, you're always putting yourself at the bottom. And, one of the things, and I have mentioned it on the podcast before, when somebody had said, I was like, I need a wee, but I did 6 or 7 things before I went for a wee. And then somebody said to me, you are not worthy enough to even go to the toilet when you need the toilet. And I was like, oh yeah. Why am I not just, I need a toilet, I'm going to the toilet, I'm looking after myself. And those are the tiny actions that we're doing that are keeping us in that state, and reminding ourselves that we're not worthy enough, and reminding ourselves that, the reprogramming, the reframing is like my life right now. That's exactly what I'm having to do, to realize that I am making myself better, and I'm making choices, but I have the freedom to make the choices. And I think that's really important. If people are listening and they're thinking, right, this is all very well and good, but what does it look like? What can I do? I'm listening to this today, I am completely anxious. I'm overwhelmed. I can feel that, flight. I'm in flight mode. I'm ready to fight. What can they do today that could help them?
Okay. Well, the first thing I want to say is I actually have a 3-day event coming up, which is going to be not more information, where I'm actually going to be coaching people in a beautiful container. So if you actually want to experience this for yourself at a crazy price of £22, then please come join. What you can
We'll
do
put it in
now.
the show notes.
Yes. Okay. Sounds good. Because it's important I say this, because I'm going to be honest, is we can't do this work alone. I couldn't do this work alone. My clients couldn't do this work alone. And you could maybe try, and you can try and do all the things, but it comes back to time. How much of your time do you value? A big part of this process is loss of time, being in survival, loss of, having behaved in certain ways, or, maybe I would have, I would have been in a different place in my life had I not been in survival for so long, and struggle with this anxiety and overwhelm for so long. So there's a lot of loss in this process. So when people come to me, they say, I don't want to lose anymore. I value my time and my life, my one precious life enough. And we simply can't do this alone. And so there's that. And then here's what you can start doing. Yeah, you mentioned the word triggers, because triggers, and I was speaking to actually a one-to-one client yesterday, having a session with her. And one of my past teachers always said, and this is very relevant for this work, never waste a good trigger. Because what the trigger is, it's what we were speaking about before, it's your brain and your nervous system saying, like, it's like an alarm bell, like there's a threat here, there's a threat here, there's a threat here. And what tends to happen in our society, going back to what I was saying earlier, is we're trying to just soothe that, right? We are taught, if you feel anxiety, to just use your breath to soothe and calm it, and let's try and make it better. And while that can help temporarily in that moment, and while breath work is helpful, and I use breath work in my work in a very intentional way, what's happening is that the alarm bell is just going to ring the next day, and then it's going to ring the next day, and it's going to ring the next day, and we're just pushing down what at the core, at the root system, is saying this is a real threat. And so what we need to do is retrain as I was saying earlier, retrain the nervous system to know that it's no longer a threat, even though rationally but and that's just your conscious level, which is 5% of what's running the show. 95% is saying there's a real threat. So how you can start doing that, when you notice a trigger, pause. This is what we call like an interrupt, right? So notice, like, oh, wow, like whether it's anxiety or whether you're procrastinating, any kind of a trigger is when you go into any kind of pattern, when you're going to please someone and you're going to say yes when you actually really mean no, when your body is screaming like, I really don't want to fucking do this. Or I hope that we can swear on this podcast.
Absolutely can.
When there is a trigger, pause and interrupt it. Okay, if you can. And this is where you can take some breaths, but just not to soothe, not to try and make it go away, but to notice it and pause. And then notice what you're feeling in your body. Notice notice sensations, simply just sensations, like, okay, and you might want to do this with eyes closed. It can help you connect more into sensations. Like, where am I feeling this right now? Maybe the chest, or maybe the belly, right? The belly and the chest are kind of very main areas. Maybe the neck or the shoulders. We were talking the other day in my small group container about something around the left shoulder. A lot of people experience a lot of tension. I had that for a long time, and now it's gone, so much of that. And we're trying to resolve it with like stretching and with all of these things. And it was only really through an emotional lift and through this work that it lifted for me. So where am I feeling this in my body? So pause, interrupt. Where am I feeling in my body? And that can already be quite challenging for many people. And it was for me. Like, I was in a place we didn't speak about. I was deeply traumatized, but I had no idea that I was. And I was in a place of disconnection, of freeze. So I was numb. I didn't really feel anything for such a long time. It was kind of the achievement that kept me going, that kept me numb. The food kept me numb. The people pleasing kept me numb. The perfectionism kept me numb. It was a way that I was able to soothe the discomfort, because to actually be in that discomfort without trying to soothe it with something was too much for my brain and my nervous system to handle. So I had to keep soothing it. So I was kind of disconnected and numb. And so for many people, even simply that, starting to notice what's inside of your body, can be quite challenging. And so I want to validate and acknowledge that of course it is. And if it feels right now to even do those first 2 steps, then I see you and I hear you. And that's why this work is so important. And then from what I'm feeling in my body is not from a headspace, but asking what is my body's trying to say right now? What is the story that I'm trying to say? What is the story I'm telling myself right now? So if, for example, you get a client says no, a potential client says no, and then you go into this, you notice yourself triggered, right? You notice yourself kind of maybe shutting down or maybe kind of going into an active, and really charged state. What you pause, you notice what's there. And what is the story I'm telling myself? And it may be like, I'm being rejected right now. I'm being rejected. Like that my work isn't good enough. And I see this so much with business owners. My work isn't good enough, or like I'm a fraud, right? These things come up. I'm a fraud, the imposter syndrome. When you notice that story, and the first piece is that awareness, notice that story. And then I want you, and this is the part that most people are missing, and this is where we start to complete the loop, is where did this show up for you as a child? Where were you rejected as a child? Where did you feel in some way rejected? Or maybe you were the good girl, right? The good, or, good boy, that you did everything that you could so that you didn't feel rejected. That those are just same, just two sides of the same coin. And then again, from a body place, I want you to stay, not be up in the head and in the rational, but stay in the body. Notice what those sensations that you identified earlier. Notice if they've moved. Not going away. We're not trying to fix anything. There's nothing to be fixed because the body is saying something. We want it to continue saying what it needs to say rather than pushing it down and suppressing it as we have. And so this second step is, what do I feel for that child that was so afraid of being rejected? That didn't, and it's a lot for a child to handle, because to be rejected, especially by your parent givers, that is equivalent to death for a child. And a lot of people will go like, whoa, that's huge. Yeah, we go into survival because it is equivalent to death, because your parent figures, your caregivers, the people who were responsible for taking care of you, they were your only source of survival. They were your only source of survival. And so if there's any kind of threat to that attachment, if there's any kind of rejection or anything that is a threat to that attachment, we have to adapt as children. So we adapt in ways we suppress maybe how we feel because expressing your emotions isn't safe, or we suppress our voice if we're told we're too much. Or if we're not enough of something, then we suppress certain parts of ourselves. And again, we carry that into adulthood. So what do you feel for that child? And this is where, and there's a lot of injustice and there's a lot of anger, perhaps. There may be grief essentially is the big component here. Is what do you feel for that little child? And be able to access all that locked up emotion, because you went into survival for a reason. And all those locked up, those emotions, those loops that you didn't get to complete, you didn't have the space, the safe space to be able to, capacity, the capability, the resource. You didn't have a stable, emotionally stable parent or caregiver to be able to hold those emotions for you. So you had to lock them away somewhere, and they don't go anywhere. They stay in your body. And so we want to unlock those. So that's, I guess, the third step. The first is the pause, the pattern interrupt. The second one is, what are you saying to yourself? The third one is, where as a child did you grow up? And then connecting to that grief, if you're able to in that moment. And this is where, again, we can't do this on our own. And a lot of clients, they try to, and then we just do it faster. We fast track it together. And we are able to access things because I'm able to see things in ways that you can't see for yourself, because that's what those imprints do. That's what trauma does. That's what the nervous system dysregulation does. It clouds the way we see the world, the way we see ourselves. So that's the big piece. So yeah, work through, even if it's just the first step, interrupting the pattern, noticing, okay, I'm going to just write this down. Wow, I'm feeling this, or I'm feeling nothing at all. That's really good information as well. So yeah, if you follow those four steps to start, then I think that's a really great place to start, and you'll notice some huge change.
Yeah, it's definitely the noticing. That's kind of where I suppose I am, and if I'm doing this work, where I am in this work, because it's just that, and changing things depending on what I'd noticed and depending what I'm thinking, okay, that's not a good way around for me to do things. How could I make tomorrow different?
I've lost you for some reason.
Because
I don't know
if
it's
how I felt when that happened. That's definitely where I am with it. And it's such an interesting thing. And I think there's going to be lots of listeners asking themselves so many questions now, but I just think it's something that needs to be spoken about more. It's something people need to have access to and understanding, and not just see it as a buzzword and an ice bath and some deep breathing, which you said all of these things help, but they help probably once you've done the work, I guess, and you're doing it. So it's those ways to continue to heal
Yeah.
and,
Yes.
you
They,
know,
they, they're, they're beau- they're beautiful additions. So this is not instead of. Yes,
yes.
continue to do these things, but this is the core of the work, because a lot of these things, again, we're just managing it. We're trying to soothe, and with that soothing, it can actually be quite harmful, where you're just pushing it down. You're just pushing it down, and your body is just going to speak louder. And the way it speaks louder is through all these responses: the anxiety, the overwhelm, the physical illness. It will speak louder at some point, because something always gives when our system is carrying so much of it. So, but yes, no, this is the core of the work. But yeah, again, it's not instead of those can be beautiful additions, but this is the core. This is the core of the work.
Well, I could talk about this all day long. I've got so many questions and so many things, but this is the podcast, and we do know that we have the lovely 3 joy questions to ask at the end. So we'll start with the first one, which is the joy spotlight, which is a favourite thing that has shaped your life, business, or work.
Well, I have to say, it's this life's work. It's completely my entire life, and I see just with even the case study with my client yesterday, it completely alters your life. And I always tell my clients this, and I say this in my content: you, after months of working together, you will not recognize yourself, you will not recognize your life, but in the most beautiful of ways, because what you will recognize is essentially this version of you that's been in survival, that this operating system that's been present for so many decades. And so the reason you won't recognize yourself is because you're actually going to return to who you, not to someone else, right? To return to who you actually are, but before any, right at the start. So it's your life and you become unrecognizable. And my client said this, because I asked her a question yesterday in the case study, and she said, Nicole, you said this at the start of working with, together, and I was kind of like, I'm not sure what she's talking about. And now she said, like, she knows exactly, like she feels it, like she's just unrecognized. She's herself. She's truly herself, not the kind of the old operating system. Is the survival version of her that she's been for decades and decades and decades. So she said, I literally cannot recognize myself. She said she has no words for just the impact it has. It really has. I work with entrepreneurs, and it has a huge impact on your business. I mean, beyond anything you can imagine. But the impact it has on every single area of your life, your relationships, your parenting. She's a parent. She has more capacity. She has 2 very young boys around the same age as I have, my girls. And she said her capacity for being able to be there to hold their emotions, to hold their discomfort, because when you don't have that capacity within yourself, you can't hold your own. And that's what survival is because we can't hold our own discomfort. So we need those patterns to soothe it constantly. So she has great capacity for that. It changes your entire life. And this is why this is one of my children are a huge joy, but this work is just incredible. And that's why I founded my coaching academy as well, so that the impact, I can bring the impact out into bigger numbers and the rest of the world.
Love that, because you can hear that it's your passion, and you can hear that it's changed your life, and it comes from such a personal space. So it makes total sense that would be your joy spotlight, because often we do businesses from our zone of genius, or from a product we want to launch, or for lots of different reasons, whereas you can hear that yours is a pure passion for what you're doing and the transformation you can bring. So it's really lovely to hear. The second one is inspired by joy. So a person, a book, a mentor that has stopped you in your tracks and is inspiring you every day.
My children. I'm going to say my children because, and I say this all the time, there are 2 events in my life that really cracked me wide open. And those were entrepreneurship and becoming a mother. I was asleep for most of my life. And then, yes, I started to wake up prior to those events, but it really was entrepreneurship and really becoming a mother that cracked me wide open. And, the word was inspired. Raising my children and parenting them continues to inspire my work every day. I mean, I bring in stories of the way that I parent my children into my work with clients, because parenting them has allowed me to heal as well on so many different layers, and on being able to see all the ways that see all the needs that I had that went unmet. And again, the same client that I was speaking to yesterday, just because she's fresh in my mind, she said on this case study, she spoke about how before it came from, even her relationship with her parents, it came from a place of like, and her parents and her parenting, I'm giving all this and meeting my children's needs in all of these ways. Why is it that my needs were not met in these ways? And so it kind of, parenting highlights all of these. It kind of brings, again, that's why I say, like, it just brings it to the surface in a way we can't ignore, so yeah, it's my children, continues to inspire my work every single day. And I see that in the way that they show up, in the way that, in the way that they show up to the world. And they're still very young. So that's why it's such a, I mean, there's no words really for me that can really describe what it is for me to really witness that, for them to go out into the world in the ways that I never was able to. And even at such a young age. So yeah, definitely my children.
It's beautiful. Like, really, really beautiful. And I'm going to leave that one there, beautiful, because it's, as a mother of two girls, I totally get it. And the last one is the joy killer, the thing you would like to see removed from the world.
Anything toxic positivity. Anything you need to spin it into, and I see this with mindset work and why I get actually very angry. Just as passionate as I am about my work, I'm also as passionate about the anger that I feel when I see this work, where I see clients come to me and they have certain experiences that are not being felt or given the space to feel, whether, when I'm talking about unpleasant sensations, discomfort, whatever, when they're not allowed the space to feel that, they're being told, well, what are you grateful for? Or they're being told, well, what's something positive out of this? And what that does, again, it continues to suppress it, and is so harmful, whether it's short term or long term. And so I get very angry. Yes, I get very angry about anything that because that's what it's doing. It's shaming the full human experience. It's shaming the discomfort. It's shaming the pain. It's shaming the sadness, the grief. It's already their brain. And this is what happens with trauma. A part of our brain shuts down in order to survive. So the brain area that's responsible for our sense of, for our ability to feel, and which is also the same brain area that is associated with who we are, with our identity. This is why the whole entrepreneurial world is talking about identity, because no one really knows who they are, because that's what those early experiences have done for everyone. And I need to say this, whether you believe you have had big traumatic experiences or not, every single person, your brain has been infected in this way. You are afraid, if you tell other people to stop crying, or if you don't know how to handle yourself or handle other people in an discomfort, that is because your brain shut down, so you don't feel any of that. And it did that, rightly so, to serve you at the time. It no longer serves you now. And so what's happening here is by suppressing that experience further for someone, it is essentially what's the word I'm trying to look for here? It is reaffirming that it's not safe to feel. It's not safe to feel, to have this within my body. It's not safe to, and it's just reaffirming that and really re-traumatizing the person. So anything that shames a full human experience, that shuts down any of that, any kind of positivity or surface level mindset work, is just no, red flag for me.
Yeah, no, I completely agree. And for me, what comes up when you talk about that is that there's joy. This was called the Joy Work Show. My community, my membership is called the Joy Work Club. And I've said many, many times on this podcast that when I told people that I was putting joy, and joy was a big thing of what I wanted to talk about, and joy and strategy and business and everything else, and people were like, you're not the most natural joy person. You're not who we think of when we talk about joy. And it comes back to this idea of toxic positivity, because I was like, but joy isn't, it's not pretty. Joy isn't, if you can be really honest about what brings you joy, you're actually being really brave, because probably what brings you joy is going to upset somebody along the way, or how you want to build your business or how you want to build your life, you're not going to be liked by everybody. Not everyone's going to be agreed with you. But to chase your own joy is a really brave thing to do. And so often it's just like, oh, but this is my joy and it's my joy and it's all just so joyful. That's not what joy is to me. And it comes along with that whole toxic positivity. It's like, for me to feel joy, I also need to feel the complete opposite. But also that joy can
Yes.
come to me every single day. Like I can wake up this morning and feel off and feel sad and feel down and maybe have lots of triggers coming up like we've spoke about and feel anxious and overwhelmed and start the procrastination. But then I can think, but joy to me is sitting down with a cup of tea. So I'm going to have that
Mm.
moment and I'm going to have that wee moment of joy. Now, that not might be joy for somebody else, but that can then reset me and start me again for the day. But it's acknowledging the way that I feel. It's not saying that, all right, okay, well, I'll just go and like have a little skip outside and talk about joy and everything will be fine. That's not what it's about. But it's realizing that I can feel like this and still have a moment of joy. I can feel like this and still be proud. I can feel like this and still be excited about what's to come because all those feelings are valid and actually they're what make us human. They what make the joy come and the happiness come and the excitement come and those moments that we live for. But without it, it doesn't exist. Does that make sense?
Yeah.
So that's
Right. Yeah.
the toxic positivity.
Yeah. And like you said, there is no joy without the full human experience. There is no joy without the discomfort, without the anger, without the, there is no joy. And I and it's important I say this because there's been a lot of trauma studies that have been done, neuroscience studies have been done that confirm this, that our capacity for gratitude, for joy, our capacity is limited when we have so many of these traumatic imprints within the body. So by telling, and I want to come back to more specifically gratitude. So by asking someone to write down a gratitude list of what they're grateful for is actually going to be maybe even send them into more dysregulation and be very unhelpful because I should be grateful. Okay, again, this is reaffirming, okay, then there must be something wrong with me because this seems to work for other people. And every single one of my clients say this to me. I don't need to do any gratitude lists anymore, Nicole. Through our work, I have that capacity now to actually, it's organic, it's there. Like you don't need to be like, I'm grateful for, you can feel that deep in your core. You can feel the joy.
I'm already grateful.
So yeah, it was important that I add that I add that as well. But yeah,
Absolutely. And I think it's that thing as well. And I think, I like to, at the end of the day, think about what went well, what didn't go well, what could I do better tomorrow? And that's my way of kind of, a box off, it's like boxing off my work day, and that's allowing those feelings. And it's not about what didn't go well, isn't about me like chastising myself or, punishing myself. It's about, oh, well, that was a bit horrible or I didn't like that or whatever it is. But it's that acknowledgement of just that's what it is and what did go well. I'm like, oh, yeah, remember that really nice thing happened and you were really happy or you had great success or something like that happened. And then what you're going to focus on tomorrow. And then that's it. My day's done and I move on, having dinner with the kids, whatever it may be. And it's not all about being grateful. And I do love to feel grateful. I do love to think, but like you say, it's being in a position that you just see that you have gratitude without having to write a list of 10 things. Because some days I don't have 10 things to be thankful for. Some days are just a bit rubbish. And I think it's okay to feel that too.
yeah, it's not okay. It's
So
actually
if people
crucial.
wanted to
It's crucial
find
that we
you,
feel that.
Nicole, where do they come? Sorry, absolutely.
No, there was a
So
lag.
if
Don't
people
worry, there
wanted
was a
to
lag. Go
find
ahead.
you, where do no, there was it's just come in at the back end of the podcast. It's done so well up to this point. So if people want to find you, where would they come? Where do they find you? Where do they connect with you?
So on Instagram, I'm on Instagram. My handle is at Nicole Rose Coaching. I'm also on Facebook. We can add all the link. I'm also on LinkedIn as well. You can message me, DM me, you can email me as well through my website. so many ways to get in touch. Just if you feel pull, if you're curious about anything or even have a question, like my door is always open. So yeah, please ask away.
All the links will be in the show notes. You can just go down there and click them and go straight to where Nicole is. Now, before I let you go, I always ask one last question, and that is, what joy legacy would you like to leave behind?
The word legacy means it means a lot to me, and that's why I don't know if anyone will see the video of that where I really took that in. I was closing my eyes just now because this work, I help people grow businesses and I help people build their businesses and the impact it has on every area of their life. Yes, I'm here for that. But ultimately, I'm here to create a legacy for myself, for this. I mean, this legacy, this work, it's this work. And what I'm creating through my coaching academy it means more to me than I can even put into words. And I feel that emotion right now. It continues to feed me and nurture me in ways that I never received as a child. And to be able to give that to other people and to spread this work in the way that it needs to be spread, because this work is filling a gap that is missing everywhere. My work is rooted in safety and integrity, because without safety, true safety, and there's so many layers to that. It's not just calling a container safe, like this is safe for you to, there's so many layers to how you can create a safe container for clients. And this is what we do through my coaching academy, because safety is paramount. Because your body wants to achieve, going back to that word homeostasis, it wants to achieve equilibrium. It wants to complete those loops. It wants to resolve. But what it's looking for, which you never received back then, is it's looking for that safety, for that safe environment to be able to do that. Once the safety is there, and there's so many intricate ways that you bring safety into a container, and that's what I teach you in my coaching academy. Once that safety is there, that's it. You start to complete those loops and you start to change your life in ways that never, that you can never imagine. So this is my legacy, because this is for that younger version of me that deserves so much but didn't receive. It is for every single person that feels that at a core level, as I'm talking right now. It's for legacy it's for my children, it's for their children after that, and it's to help create really, really a huge impact for all the generations after. So that's, my legacy is this work and what it will do for my children and for the generations after that.
It's amazing. And I can see through your passion and emotion that you're not going to rest until, not that it's done, because it's never going to be done, but that it's a widespread movement, knowledge, however you want to look at it, but that there is more and more people that have access to this coaching.
Yes.
Okay.
And I'm not going to stop rather than rest, because I'm a very big, that word rest, I love rest, but I'm not going to stop. Absolutely. I'm not going to stop until
you can rest and keep going. It is, the two are not, they're not separate. They're not two the separate ends of a continuum. Some would say that rest is the exact way you keep going. And some of us have learned that the hard way.
That's true. Yeah.
Thank you so much.
Thank you, Diane. Thank you.
You so much for joining me today, Nicole. It has been enlightening and wonderful and beautiful and everything in between.
Thank you for having me.
What an amazing conversation with Nicole. I hope you found her wisdom as grounding, as empowering as I did, and also an education. There was so much more about nervous system regulation, a term that is bandied about, that has become trendy almost. Did I just say trendy on a podcast? I might have. That has become trendy almost, but actually you don't know the depth. So we don't have a full understanding until people like Nicole come into our lives at all. And it's amazing how that nervous system regulation really is one of those game changers, because when we support ourselves at a deeper level, everything else in life and business shifts. And it's so important to think of life and business not always as separate entities, but actually supportive of each other. So let me leave you with my 3 takeaways from today's episode. That regulation unlocks resilience. Your nervous system is the foundation. When it's balanced, you're better equipped to handle stress, make decisions, and lead with clarity. And I think that's something that everybody wants. Number 2, that healing happens holistically. Emotional well-being and physical well-being aren't separate entities. Supporting one supports the other. And as someone that suffers from chronic illnesses, I cannot tell you how important I think this is. And number 3, that joy is found in safety. The more we create safety for ourselves in our bodies, in our businesses and communities, the more joy has space to flourish, to have the life that we want. And so often we don't look at the reasons and the spaces that we feel unsafe in. And that has been a real lesson for me to learn. If today's episode spoke to you, make sure to connect with Nicole. All her links are in the show notes. And if you're ready for more conversations like this, don't forget to follow The Joy Work Show, subscribe, like, share wherever you're listening so you never miss an episode and you help me grow more joy in the world. Until next time, remember, regulate, reconnect, and choose joy, even through challenge.